Oh yeah. You smell that? That's the sweet succulent aroma of fresh blood from a fatal reputational blow. Someone out there has just had their dirt graciously unearthed for the rest of the internet to gawk at. Now it's only a matter of time before it attracts the attention of the great beast that is the Commentary Collective. So who was this online figure? Who was the one who kicked the bee's nest? Well, if Twitter's any indication, I'd say it's a man by the name of Jared... something, otherwise quote-unquote known as ProJared. I say known in quotes because his largest channel has 1 million subscribers, and aside from a couple stray videos, it hasn't been active in nearly a year. A fair portion of his status can be attributed to his professional and personal connections to other YouTubers and brands, like Screw Attack.
Today is my last day at ScrewAttack.com. Craig recognized that my goals and ambitions do not line up with the future of Screw Attack.
And good on him. He's taking it right where it matters.
Normal Boots, and Game Grumps. Normal Boots, of course, being a company formerly co-run by JonTron. He has a few subs, maybe you've heard of him.
Bigger than anyone's ever seen before.
And if you're an LS Mark fan or hater like I am, you definitely know a thing or two about Game Grumps. Still not gonna outlive that mark. There's literally no point in that video. But Jared seemingly has no specific attributes that make him stand out, especially when juxtaposed to the people I just mentioned. His channel focuses on comedic retro reviews, and that's about all there is to say. They're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they're fairly cookie cutter in terms of presentation and aesthetic. Now don't get it twisted, this isn't me trying to critique him by saying, oh, look at how bad this nerd's content is, LOL. But when considering how standard his content is, you might think if this guy had gotten himself into any drama, the reaction wouldn't be nearly as widespread in comparison to what would have happened if you would have switched him out with one of his more distinguished colleagues. But apparently not! So that being said, what this guy did must have been very severe to balance out the fact that he as a figure is not noteworthy enough to draw people in through name recognition. And, well, he kind of did. If you want a rough breakdown of things, he publicized his split with his wife, Heidi, after having cheated on her.
I suck. 1 month ago, I didn't have the guts to admit a mistake and keep the greatest girl I ever met. I've been regretting it ever since. However,
most of the information is still getting released as we speak, but apparently he was cheating on her with Holly Conrad, who up until last year was the wife of a guy named Ross Donovan, who was a animator and friend of Game Grumps.
what the hell are you waiting for? Just go for it!
You know, I live pretty close to here. If you'd like to hang out a little while longer.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm getting uncomfortable. I don't really like this. Can we turn this one off?
Allegedly, Jared was seeing Holly for over 1 year, which given the timeline for the divorce between Holly and Ross, has some dark implications. But apparently not as dark as Jared himself attempting to acquire unsavory things from fans.
Now, I consider myself to be a person of moderate intelligence. I'm certainly not an idiot.
But really, that's just the tip of the iceberg. As all of you know, I'm an SS rank E detective, so once this passed on my Twitter feed, I immediately put on my tinfoil thinking cap and got to work. It's important to note that one of the images that surfaced quite a while before this was a depiction of Jared himself wearing a Sailor Moon costume.
I'm not ashamed to say that I love Sailor Moon.
You slipped it right in.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Now, obviously, if you've watched my videos for quite a while, you'd know that I'm a proponent of the idea that traps aren't gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not at all.
Now, I know what you're all thinking. But Jargon, traps are gay. This is a common misnomer that is very problematic and also idiotic. Hey, traps aren't gay. Traps are not gay. But even so, Jared definitely pushes even a staunch believer such as myself to reevaluate things for this one special case because he's not exactly rocking the aesthetic. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not at all.
I mean, he has the figure for it, I'm not gonna lie, but the facial region could use some improvement.
Fight me on this one. I dare you.
But that being said, I think these photos were staged as part of an elaborate ruse put in place by an evil corporation hell-bent on ruling the world. It's clear to me what's really going on here. Jared was a puppet inserted by Google to help curb the minds of the YouTube populace in the retro community. As we all know, Google's an evil corporation seeking to take over the world, and they insert YouTubers on the site to win people over. When looking at Jared specifically, it explains why, like all of Google's mainstream puppets, Jared's videos are mundane and seemingly harmless, while Jared himself is somehow connected with far more influential figures to spread his reach. Google is uncreative. They're the opposition of free thinking. They want one homogenous mindset. So is it any surprise that Jared would be a channel under their control? I mean, really. MatPat of Game Theory is just one such example of a Google puppet. And I mean, just look at how bland and unchallenging this faggot is. He looks like a bootleg Disney Channel nerd character. MatPat, go back to Bizarre with Jake Paul. Just kidding, MatPat, I love you. ProJared is very similar, making him the ideal candidate for Google to recruit into their ranks. Or Nickelodeon's ranks, for that matter.
Yup, these are the two 7th grade girls who are currently tearing it up with their hit game,
Sky will. They made over a couple of $1 million with this game so far, and I totally get why. This game is addictive. Seriously, I even play it in the shower.
Well, looks like Nickelodeon went and unlisted that video. The video that I just got that clip from was up on their official channel, and it is now unlisted right after this drama happened. I'm surprised, too. That thing was buried, like, under, that thing was years old. How... Okay, sorry, I just kind of wanted to toss this in last minute, because that's just a little bit weird. I mean, surprised they'd even think of it. He wasn't even in the title or anything. Whatever, back to conspiracies. By paying him off as they did MatPat, they could coerce him into making subtle changes to his content that would indirectly brainwash ProJared viewers into aligning their ideals with Google. All done through subtle means, of course, like everything Google does. But this happy agreement between them was soon cut short when they discovered his degenerate antics.
I have never been so turned on before in my life.
Jared wasn't a clone or someone Google themselves were brainwashing. Jared was a normal human being whose allegiance to Google was solely based on financial gain. So all the controversial things Jared did were done completely on his own accord, without Google's knowledge. Now, clearly, Google must have figured this out far before Jared's behavior was ever publicized. So they had a huge problem on their hands. Someone who was in charge of winning over a portion of their followers to join Google was now a loose cannon that everyone would turn against once they figured out what he'd been doing behind the scenes. But Google deployed a rather creative solution. Strange, I know, but still. Luckily, they were still paying him to influence the general public in whatever way Google saw fit, so they decided if Jared was going to be made public enemy #1 once this drama all surfaced, maybe they could reverse engineer him to spout the messages and ideals that Google opposed, so that when the tables were turned, every spoken opinion by Jared would be called into question, and maybe people would be more inclined to go against Jared's word, and therefore join Google's ranks by gravitating to the opposite of whatever opinion he'd given. Case in point, the trap picks. Google knew Jared was going down, so they figured maybe they could use Jared's influence to retroactively portray Google's greatest enemy in a negative light. That enemy being the trap.
A trap, as I'm sure all of you know, is a guy that dresses up as a girl and looks like a girl. Essentially, a girl with the mind of a guy and a dick. It's a woman, but way fucking better.
Thanks, Tom. I couldn't have said it better myself. So I plagiarized your video. They're not trans, but they dress the part and Google hates them for it because Google doesn't have the hips to pull it off themselves. And the free thinking from the traps poses a direct obstacle to Google's desired homogeneous thought process. So they used ProJared as a means of showcasing the traps in a negative light because they knew his crimes would eventually become public knowledge, and if he was going down, they might as well try to take the traps with him. But it's not going to work. ProJared is a fake, even more so than all traps are already. He was a stand-in that Google set up to take the brunt of the backlash that he himself had laid the groundwork for. With the making of this video, I, a fellow trap myself, will vindicate my brethren from the premature judgment that they'll most likely be subject to at the hands of Google thanks to ProJared's affair. But that's not the only reason I'm making this video, nor is it the biggest one. Because right now, there's a much bigger enemy than Google out there. When these controversies happen, it attracts the attention of a hungry beast known as the Commentary Collective, which seeks out fallen idols to feast on for views and money, all while parading around the idea that talking about scummy idiots like ProJared somehow have a positive impact on the community, when in actuality it's just for shallow entertainment. I think Justin Wang said it best. Quote, "Just to be clear, I don't care if people are massive fucking degenerates. I'm just here to laugh." End quote. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem arises when people ascribe more value to the Commentary Collective other than simply being an entertainment source, and often at the cost of someone's reputation. You could say I'm no better for making this video and outing Google for their antics while touching upon Jared's actions in the process, but unlike apparently the majority of people out there, I don't see my videos as anything other than shallow entertainment. And of course, a mouthpiece to spread the word about Google's dark hidden lore. But the true members of the Commentary Collective see themselves as predators with the ability to take down wounded idols that they prey on. And because of that, they've fooled the general populace into agreeing, which only further empowers them. In the eyes of the population, they're the feared predator they've always wanted to be, the sharks of the online ocean. But the food chain isn't complete yet. ProJared, I owe you a huge thanks, because your dying reputation has chummed the waters for the true long-term enemy out there. And while they're too busy devouring you, I can zero in on them myself. So to the sharks that may be watching, I have one thing to say to you.
Well, you son of a...
Love it. Keep doing it. Keep it up. Keep it up, bro. You're the best.
Book Lover asks, is it true that you get rock hard boners when gays call you cute?
I have never been so turned on before in my life.